My name is Gary Woodman. I'm Chief Executive of the Worcestershire Local Enterprise Partnership, and welcome to this Love Your Apprentice webinar. I have several guests here, so I'll start in the top corner. But Linda, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Yes, I'm Linda Gittings, and I'm the Apprentice and Qualifications Manager for Platform Housing Group.
Hi, I'm Tania Hemming from Worcestershire College, leader of business engagement and sales, so predominantly look after the recruitment of apprenticeships, but also the employer vacancies.
And Nigel.
Everybody, I'm Nigel Morgan. I'm the Chief Executive at Worcestershire Group Training Association.
Brilliant. And we've done a podcast before on partly this topic and how you've got through as a training provider through the COVID piece, but really probably first to you, Linda, really with a kind of what has Platform done and what have you done as kind of with your apprentices during the COVID period?
Okay, so the majority of our apprentices we have had to furlough for quite a long period of time because a lot of them are construction and therefore they're going into people's properties. So it has brought some challenges. We've made sure that they've all had good IT support, giving them iPads, laptops, phones where they haven't had them. We've made sure they've had good welfare checks from their line managers, from the comms team have been issuing weekly communications, both the corporate stuff so they feel that they still belong to Platform, as well as the more gentle communications, a bit more light-hearted information as well. Myself and Ellie in my team have been having regular contact with them, helping them out where they've needed it. We've put a lot of information on our learning management system. They've all got access to that. That's allowed them to continue to do all the e-learning that's available. There's a lot of resources on wellbeing on there as well. So we've done quite a lot on that for them. I must admit, I'm really pleased to say that an awful lot of our apprentices have worked very hard while they've been on furlough. They've taken up the opportunities that the providers have given them to go on virtual classrooms. They've done face-to-face meeting on one-to-one basis if they can. With some people, they've done learning logs of everything they've been accessing. They've done YouTube clips. They've done all sorts of learning. They've done everything that the college has been asking them, whether it be through Google Classrooms or live stream, whatever. They've just kept up with it they can. The main challenge we've had is when it's been practical elements, and some of our students have been fairly close to completing, and the practical elements have stopped them completing at the moment. That's been it's been hard to motivate.
And Tania, at Heart of Worcestershire, what are some of the things that you've put in place to make sure that employers have been supported through this period, to make sure that the apprentices really get the kind of support that they need? You're on mute.
We've had to adapt. Brilliant. Yeah, sorry. I did get to put it on mute in between. But yeah, we've had to adapt really quickly and really sort of look at a mixture of blended learning. Obviously, when apprenticeships are on furlough, they are still able to engage in all of that learning activity. And therefore, our sort of academic team have really adapted in terms of providing information virtually, carrying out virtual one-to-ones, giving them tasks on the virtual learning environment, and we've been really successful in that. So a lot of our apprentices have still been able to engage in that learning during this period and are still on target. In terms of supporting the employers, obviously a lot of remote working at the moment. And therefore, we've been in contact as anybody else, really, in terms of telephone, just really supporting them, seeing whether they need any support from ourselves and what interventions that we can actually give to them that will enable them to sort their apprentices too.
And that bit about the practical element, particularly of construction, you kind of need that bit. So what are the plans there to support the apprentices through that last bit?
So it's it's just adapting to the way of learning. That's what it is. They're obviously still employed in terms of predominantly the bricklayers and stuff like that. They've gone back to work quite quickly if they actually did have time off. So the LSDOs that we support, the Learning Skills Development officers, are still providing that level of support, but in just a bit of a different way, as opposed to it being practical. There could be videos, for instance, and modules that they have to complete towards the end of their apprenticeship, which comes sort of September time, maybe a month delayed due to the fact that we've been in this position, but certainly they're sort of still on target to complete their apprenticeship programme.
And Nigel, we talked about kind of Worcester Group training and the steps that you put in place. How have you really supported the employers and the apprentices through this period?
So a lot of it started early on with interpreting the guidance, especially around the furlough scheme and being able to continue training. So it was supporting the employers there, that the apprentices could be in furlough but carry on with their apprenticeship training. So, and that was really successful. It kept, over 95% of our learners on programme. So that's a real success story, giving them a focus as well while being in furlough, I feel. And now as we move forward, it's supporting the employers around what the future looks like. So it's a bit less reactive and a bit more, let's look forward and see how we can help with recruitment and engagement moving forward in the next couple of months. But, and trying to encourage the employers to keep involved with not only their existing apprentices, but, keep their skills strategy in place for future recruitment.
Yeah, and Linda, do you think you've had good support? What's been the information that's come through the college, but also what do you think of the overall sort of guidance to employers through this period?
I think there's been a lot of good support that's come through. Your emails are coming through regularly. Some of them are taking quite a bit of reading, but there's been a lot of information there and a lot of opportunities to make sure that you're doing all you can to help, so that you can keep the young people on track. We belong to the West Midlands Apprentice Ambassadors Network, and instead of us meeting every so often, we've gone to having weekly meetings via Zoom or Teams, and actually just sharing practice left, right and centre, just to see how we can help to support the young people. And we have heard that some of the practical elements of apprenticeships have gone to they've been allowed to be assessed, but it's been through video. Butchery was one, for example, which was quite successful. I'm waiting for a scaffolding one, but that one hasn't gone through yet.
I can see that there might be a challenge virtually, yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the support that's come through has been really good from government and from providers. Yeah.
Yeah, and certainly the Worcestershire Apprenticeships, is there to help. Yeah. But Nigel, there's been several announcements last week related to the summer statements, but surely that's got you thinking already.
Yeah, we jumped straight on that as a way of communicating with our employers again and make sure they're aware of these possible incentives that are coming down the road. A bit disappointing though is that we don't actually know the detail behind it yet, and that's what I've seen is we've been in contact with employers and they come straight back saying, okay, how does it work? When would we get the incentive payment? We're as in the dark as anybody else, but that's going to come out in within days or weeks maybe, but I doubt it's going to be long, and then we can communicate that and share how that's going to work. And I think it's interesting because anything like that gives an employer, even if they weren't going to recruit possibly before, it does make them reflect again and look at it again and see if it's now viable for them to have apprentices. So, if nothing else, it encourages more thought, more discussion around the apprenticeship programme.
Yeah, which is always good. And so, Tania, do we see that summer statement as a kind of positive thing? or does it mean that you've got a bit more work to do, and it's, again, communicating, perhaps, and particularly to those companies who perhaps have not taken an apprentice before?
Yeah, obviously it's initially quite complicated because we've got to break it all down and understand exactly what the process is going to be, understand the nitty gritty, and put processes internally in place within the college in order to fulfill those requirements. But it also has a positive spin. So already since the announcement last week, we've already had a number of inquiries come through, some from, majority of them from existing employers that we do work with, but also some from new employers, which is also really good. Some of my team have been furloughed, but they're all coming back now because obviously, again, what Nigel said, it's not about reacting to the situation now. It's about being proactive and engaging with employers and really informing them and educating them in terms of what the future holds in terms of apprenticeships. And I think it was a very positive announcement. Just got to work out, like I say, the nitty gritty and put certain things in place in order to ensure that we capitalise on that and ensure that apprentices have the same opportunity, if not better opportunities, than they did previously.
Yeah, and Linda, so you mentioned that you'd put some of the apprentices into furlough because obviously they couldn't go into people's houses. Obviously that guidance has started to ease, so I assume you can now bring some of those apprentices back. Just talk us through that.
The majority of our apprentices are back in doing their normal roles, with added support, guidelines, extra precautions, because quite a few of them, that's 2 in a van, so that straight away gives you issues around the social distancing. So the use of PPE and the risk assessments have been quite important. We've got some of the office staff apprentices that do a little bit of external work, but the majority of it is office based. They're still working from home. The ones that have been furloughed that can't come back into their normal role, we've managed to think about whether we can bring them back into a slightly different role. One, to give them the opportunity to gain more experience that might help their apprenticeship in the longer term, but B, to also help them to make that adjustment back into the workplace. Being on furlough for quite a long time can be quite difficult for a lot of reasons, and that's where the communication's been really important. Some people, they live on their own as well as being furloughed, and that's quite isolating. So you do have to be extremely careful.
Okay, that's really helpful. And then looking forward to September, how do you start to see? Do you see sort of recruitment going okay, Linda? Are you confident?
Yes, I think it will come with some challenges. I did sit on 2 successful candidates have been appointed, but we did some apprentice interviews last week for an admin role via Teams. It was interesting. You've still got the same impression for the young people that you were interviewing, but you had to be mindful of making sure you were muted where you were needed to, and the links were all right. And to be honest, it was quite informal to begin with because you had to make sure everybody was comfortable with the technology. So I actually think the interviews went really well. So we've got two admin that we're taking on. Those were always planned. We've got some other apprentices that we are taking on in the trades. They were always planned. They're going out to advert hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We're still looking very much at supporting the strategy that we put in place in February. They've got some hard targets in that strategy. We're still aiming to meet them. We have got to make sure we continue to support these young people. They're going to have it hard enough without not being able to find apprenticeships and jobs going forward.
Brilliant. And Nigel, are you sort of seeing employers responding to the summer statements, announcements? Obviously, we've gone through a bit of that, but also are you preparing for September as well?
Yeah, we're busy. It is our key time of the year for us. Last year we had around 170 new starts across the autumn period, so it is a key focus. And we're seeing a real mixed bag. So we've had some positive responses already to last week's news. And some employers were going to recruit anyway, it just helps them. But equally, there's a lot of businesses, especially it seems for us in the manufacturing and engineering sector, that are, being very cautious at the moment, and understandably so. So they're pulling back on any recruitment while, they just sort of consolidate what's going on. So we're trying to keep close to those employers as well, because traditionally recruitment for engineers might be September, but that doesn't mean it has to be the case. We can be flexible, and if we wait till December or January and the landscape's changed and that brings a change of approach, then we'll adapt to that as well. But we are seeing a lot of positive news as well. People are recruiting, like Platform and others out there. So there is a lot of opportunities still around. Some sectors are thriving, as always happens in these type of situations. So it's making sure we're there to support those sectors as well as the ones that are struggling.
And you're doing online interviews as well?
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of our work with the applicants is done online at the moment, clearly. So we do initial assessments, we can do the testing online, we do an interview ourselves and get an applicant pack together, if you like. So we could then send that on to an employer. So we give them all of that information that the employer could then evaluate, say 8 or 10 people, potential candidates, and shortlist for interview from that. And we'll work with them to help set up interviews, anything that's needed really to just support that process.
Brilliant. And Tania, in terms of the college, what have you sort of got in place ready for September?
Basically, we have had a number of applications really sort of stemming from March anyway, which is when all of this sort of really sort of came to the forefront. So what we've actually got is we've got obviously a pool of candidates there that are potentially looking for an apprenticeship still starting sort of September onwards. So with those, we are obviously having the the telephone discussions with them. What are they interested in? Gathering as much information as we possibly can, so that when a vacancy arises, we can go straight to that pool and already have, a good variety of candidates that we can actually discuss those vacancies with. In terms of the assessments, obviously we had a lull during the period in terms of the actual vacancies, but there have still been some vacancies that we've had to recruit for because they're really important to those employers, irrespective of the current situation. So the conversation's been had with them, but we actually are bringing limited numbers into the college. So obviously I have to go to time. There's a process that I have to follow, which is obviously getting the strategic management group or leadership group on board for me to be able to do that prior to arranging any sort of visit or going into the college. And then there is obviously a process that we have to follow. I have to speak to timetabling to ensure that within that particular area of the college that there isn't any other activities that are going on. They have to wait outside, obviously social distancing. One of the members of staff goes and gets them. There's one way in, one way out system. There is obviously hand sanitizer upon arrival. All of the computers that they need to use have all been wiped down, and that is ongoing. Even if they need a pen, obviously that we wipe the pens down with the wipes, everything. So it's pretty different to how we used to work, but it enables us to invigilate those assessments that they do. In particular, obviously you've got maths and English, but you've also got the aptitude tests as well, which this only did start last week, so it was the first time. It was really successful. So I think ongoing we're going to continue in that particular manner, unless obviously we go on lockdown again, in which case obviously it'll be completely different again. But certainly we've
Is that the same for all the 4 campuses across the college?
No,
because obviously
no.
There's okay.
No, there are opening, but they're obviously scattered openings. So
okay.
You have got the campuses opening, don't get me wrong, but not all at the same time. They're not open on the same day necessarily. Okay. So you've got to take facilities into account, who need to be present, and so it is. We've got this timetable online that on Teams that we can all go to.
Yeah, so it's very staggered across, depending on which theme you're doing, and
exactly. Where's a vacancy based, for instance? So, for instance, you could have Worcester open Tuesday and Wednesday. You could have Redditch open Wednesday, Thursday. Do you know what I mean? So it is very staggered, and staggered times coming in. So, you know, if, for instance, there is another class taking place, or an exam, for instance, not class, because obviously we're only doing and bringing in it when it's absolutely necessary. So if there's an exam, obviously we try and scatter the times that they start to the times that I'm then bringing candidates in. So it's quite complicated, but it works quite smoothly last week. So we think it's quite positive in going forward. But again, subject to change depending upon, you know, another potential lockdown and stuff. But fingers crossed we're through this, but you never know what's around the corner.
Okay. I've been picking up most of the questions in the discussion, but I noticed there's one from Councillor Ken Pollock. Has anyone noticed any reaction to Gary Williamson, who's the Secretary of State for Education, saying there's too many people going to university opposed to taking training and apprenticeships? What do you think of that, Linda?
I think the young people themselves should be making the decision what's right for them, what's right for their careers for a start. It shouldn't be about facts and figures. We should be supporting the young people to, if the university route's the right route for them, they should go down it. But I am more and more behind apprenticeships than ever. They offer a great opportunity to people. They offer an opportunity to get qualifications and to get real life experience of the workplace and your work experience. I think we will see more apprentices going forward in time. Whether or not they'll start in September or whether they'll start in January, Easter or next year. But I think apprenticeships are here to stay.
Okay. And I mean, that's been a really good discussion around those kind of things. I don't know if, Tania, you got a kind of view from the college in terms of, you know, whether too many people are going to uni. But yeah, what do you think about that?
I think it's a mixed bag at the moment, to be honest. I honestly think that, you know, these young people that have been in this situation have not sat exams, whether it, you know, for the A levels or whatever, and 16-year-olds that are applying for apprenticeships, you know, they're literally covering their back in terms of whatever aspects. They're applying for an apprenticeship, they're applying to uni, they're applying to go to sixth form college or whatever. But I think it is a mixed bag, and I think it's quite difficult to tell in terms of whether they decide to go to uni in September or fall back on, you know, an apprenticeship, or whether they would, you know, they want an apprenticeship, but they realise that the uni's policies and everything like that's changing, and therefore want to go to uni. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the social aspect of university and the fact that a lot of them that wanted to go to university no longer do, because they don't feel they're going to get that real university experience, as it were. So, you know, there's a lot of contemplation at the moment in terms of all of it, but yeah, I'm sure that apprenticeships will absolutely thrive still.
Yeah, and I think there's that room for both, in my opinion. You know, certainly as the LEP, we certainly promote both routes. Very keen to see, you know, getting rid of the targets really helpful. But I think, you know, the ability to kind of, you know, move out of school, move to college, go through, and actually, you know, get on the route and get into those higher qualifications is a really good one. And I know both our training providers today and platform support, you know, that kind of route through for people to go as far as they can and learn and train as much as they can as well. And I think, you know, sometimes we just view it as a kind of decision at 16, and actually we should be viewing it as a decision that goes, you know, really right way through your career. I mean, it's been a really great conversation. It's been really helpful, and certainly as we relaunch our kind of Love Your Apprentice campaign across the summer and into September, we're really keen that we've managed to recruit as many young people during these times, because you know, that giving them a kind of opportunity in a career in Worcestershire is really crucial to the LEP's forward strategy and the vision as Worcestershire is a great place to learn and work. So thank you all. If anyone's got any other questions or kind of wants more information, obviously I'd encourage you to go to the Worcestershire Apprenticeships website, or contact us at the LEP at inquiries@worcestershirelep.co.uk. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you.